I the asshole for refusing to share my homemade bread with a neighbor who complained about the noise of making it? I, 26 female, am incredibly passionate about making bread through sourdough. Recently, I took it a step further and invested in a home grain mill so I can mill my own flour. That's so cool! It makes a massive difference in the quality of bread, but the mill is a tad bit loud. Because I live in an apartment, I try to be mindful of the noise. I only use it for a few minutes at a time, usually right in the middle of the afternoon. Never early in the morning or late at night. A few weeks ago, my older neighbor knocked on my door to complain about the grinding noise coming from my place. I apologized, explained what it was, and assured her that I only run it for about 5 to 10 minutes at most. To smooth things over, I even brought her a freshly baked loaf of sourdough bread the next day. She told me that she enjoyed it and afterwards thanked me for it. That's so freaking kind of you. Oh, no, hold on. I know it's loud, but wait till you get to taste the product. Imagine if you get to have a couple slices of fresh sourdough bread every morning. Make your sandwiches with it. It's gonna be delicious. Since then, this neighbor has started casually knocking on my door whenever she smells bread baking and asking if I have any spares. I usually don't mind sharing, so I've given her 2 or more loaves over the past month. That's a little bit much though. Don't be asking for free stuff. I'm sorry, I know you were a little annoyed, but what are you gonna do? I get that fresh bread's probably delicious, and you're like, oh, if my neighbor's making it, maybe they don't mind sharing, but you should maybe offer to pay for it. Because they're putting in a lot of work to make this bread, and now you're just kind of asking all the time for free. I think that's pretty lame, honestly. You should offer to pay. Yesterday, I was milling grain at 2 p.m. on a Saturday. My neighbor knocked again, but this time she was furious. She told me the noise was incredibly disruptive and asked me to stop doing it entirely. I told her that milling is part of my process to make bread and I wouldn't stop, but reiterated that it only lasts a few minutes during the day. She then asked if I was baking today. When I told her I was, I also mentioned that since she still complains about the mill sound after knowing what they helped to create, I won't bother giving her any more of the product from the sounds. The bread. She's now telling other people in our building that I'm petty and unneighborly, and is threatening to complain about our landlord about the noise. My significant other thinks I should have just given her a loaf to keep her at peace, but I shouldn't have to reward someone for complaining about a reasonable daytime activity. Am I the a-hole? No, this is ridiculous. Listen, if you give her 1 loaf of bread, you're gonna have to give her a loaf of bread every single time. And then what's gonna happen? She's gonna go to the neighbors and be like, yo, the person who's making this delicious bread, if you just threaten to complain, she's going to give you a free loaf of bread. And then out of nowhere, you have another part-time job making bread for free for all of your neighbors. That is not right, and you should never get suckered into doing that. She should have been lucky to get 1 loaf of bread, because I don't care how loud it is. This is what sucks about living in an apartment complex, and people need to understand. You're going to hear your neighbors. That's why we pay what we pay. You pay a less amount than a house. Typically, I know things are crazy these days, because the walls are thin, you're crammed into a bunch of people in a little brick cube with a whole bunch of other brick cubes, and you're gonna hear your neighbors when they do loud things. But that's why there's this noise ordinance. You can't do things before 7 or 8 a.m. You can't do things after 10 p.m. But during the day, as long as it's not excessive, which 5 to 10 minutes is not excessive, you're able to make as much noise as you want. Within reason. Again, within reason. Can't tell you how many times I've been woken up 8 in the morning to somebody playing some fun music next door, but it's way too loud because they're cleaning. They clean at 8 a.m. every Sunday and I don't get to sleep. But you know what? I don't complain because that's part of living in an apartment complex. Plus, they're not going to turn it down. They're just simply not going to turn it down. You should never be threatened into giving away your hard work for free. I just can't believe this neighbor is so lame. This neighbor immediately stopped getting free stuff and completely tried to turn everybody against you. She's the worst person ever. She's not giving me free things. I deserve free things because I have to deal with her making a noise every fucking day for 5 minutes. God forbid. And you know what? If they do it at the same time, what's crazy is she could just go get earplugs. She could get noise canceling headphones. She could turn up her TV. She could do something during that time instead of just focusing on it. Because I'll tell you what, I lived below somebody who spent every week trying to get us kicked out because I made coffee in the morning because she didn't like the way the grinding of my beans sounded. She hated it. She's like, you can't do that. You can't be making coffee. You can't be doing this. You can't. No matter what it was, she would complain to try to get us kicked out, to a point where we just moved out because we were tired of dealing with this person. Like, I went up to knock on her door because I think neighbors should be neighbors, and I think we should have a conversation with each other, because I'm a musician and I'm a streamer and I make a lot of noise. So I like to tell my neighbors, hey, there's times when I might be making a lot of noise. All you have to do, here's my number. You have to let me know and I will stop, because that is not right for me to bother you. All it needs is communication. But I went to actually go knock on this person's door to like talk, like, hey, what's a time I could use my grinder? What's a time that works for you for me to do these things? You know, should I be grinding? It may not taste the best, but I'll grind in the night to avoid in the morning if that's like a solution we can come up with. But I knocked on their door. They didn't answer. I got a letter from my landlord a week later saying not to bother my neighbors. Hey, your neighbor complained that you were bothering them and kind of stalking them. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I knocked on their door once to have a conversation. And they're like, listen, this person's been a problem for us for years, but we can't kick him out. I'm sorry. That's basically it. It sucked. And it was a really decent living space, but we had to move out because of that. Let's go to some comments. If the meal is unacceptable, the bread it produces should be too. I mean, come on. Like, you can't have one without the other, so you kind of have to accept it. It's like, you know what would be really cool is if, because you caused this problem in, like, it's not really a problem, but like, because you did this to the neighbors and you caused this loud noise, it would be really, really interesting if you just had one extra loaf, and then once a day people could come to you to get a couple slices. Not a whole ass loaf, okay? That's worth a lot of money. People pay like 20, 30 bucks for a freshly baked, nice sourdough loaf that's like somebody handmade, okay? People pay a lot of money for that, and they should, because it's hard work. But if you just like kind of like, instead of giving everybody a loaf, give everybody a couple slices, if you had extra loaves, I think that would solve the problem, maybe, because then everybody's kind of benefiting. But at the same time, you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't feel obligated, and that should only be if you feel like being kind. Somebody has given us a little bit of clarity. I used to grind my own wheat flour too. The grinders are very loud, like wearing hearing protection to leave the room loud. Unless you've heard one yourself, you can't imagine how loud this is. Not saying it's right or wrong, but just offering a little bit more information. And somebody said, like, shop vac loud. Seriously, you need hearing protection because of the decibels, but 5 or 10 minutes once a week is not a big deal. That doesn't entitle the neighbor to bread every time. You know, I don't know how often. I think OP was saying they were doing it every day. They didn't really like tell us specific. Let's see. They didn't tell us how often they do it, but even if they only did it once a week, I couldn't imagine that being a big deal. It sounds like they might do it once a day because it's their hobby and they're currently trying to perfect their craft, which, if it is that loud, I can understand it's annoying, but that doesn't make them the a-hole. What do y'all think?